So part two. So I was talking about Katharine Hepburn. So anyway, um, Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn. If we are to look at other screwball comedies, which I think it would be kind of interesting to give you guys maybe some recommendations and maybe talk about a little bit about those recommendations. Um, the caveat will be that because of copyright and things like that, I'm going to be restricted to YouTube for now. I mean, I could recommend to you other things that are, will depend on you either paying for them using a streaming service or, buying a DVD or going to, having to use some kind of currency to purchase the movie in some way, shape, or form. And that's fine if you have those available to you, but since it's a little bit easier for me to like avoid the whole like, okay, here's where you find the movie, blah 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 blah. But I may bring up the classic movies that are highly, 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 highly recommended. But of course, what I'm going to talk about too, I think, is the movies that are maybe subpar. But if we know what the benchmark is, like if we know that like Bringing Up Baby is kind of like a really great example of a fabulous screwball comedy. So if we measure a lot of things by those standards, um, you'll have a good way of like benchmarking like the quality, right? And I think the fun for me with screwball comedy and any comedy is to watch it all the way through if you can, unless it just is horrible, every once in a while that happens. But to watch it all the way through and, you know, sometimes it's fun to compare it again to other things if you want to do that. Sometimes it's good to watch a movie thinking about the writing. Sometimes it's good to watch a movie thinking about the cinematography. That's something I enjoy doing too, especially when you get into like the 50s and 60s movies. You can go nuts with cinematography and have like a fabulous time with that in terms of the classic era. Um, Cinematography for landscapes and for on location shooting. The cinematography in the 40s is fabulous for black and white, and that's like a whole other world in itself. So, anyway, and that's something else I may talk about. But yeah, Bringing Up Baby, fabulous, really wonderful, and you should watch it if you haven't already. The cool thing about it is maybe what I'll do is get back to it at another video because it is available on YouTube temporarily. And what I might do is put the link in the comments to the YouTube link because, why not, right? And I'll put that in the YouTube link and in the comments so you can go ahead and watch it or rewatch it. And maybe what we'll do is I'll try and, rewatch it again myself and do another video on that. Or we can talk about a couple of videos. Now, I'd like to move on to another topic, which is a little bit of like why I like to talk about this stuff. There's a couple things you might want to know about me. I have a music background. I have a bachelor's in music and I have a master's in music. Now that's mostly in the classical arena. So they were mostly in voice and voice pedagogy and performance, and opera was part of that, an art song. So I do like opera. Although I don't listen to it all the time anymore, I do enjoy it every once in a while. So that may come up in this YouTube channel. But in addition to my bachelor's in music, I spent a lot of time in theater. And I took a lot of collegiate acting classes or theater history classes and movement and all sorts of things. And so I think that's really helpful in that it allows me to notice things in movies, especially classic movies, because a lot of the classic era 30s, 40s, 50s, but especially 30s and 40s, there was so much theater talent that had come from New York all the way over to Hollywood. So we were blessed to see, and still are blessed, to be able to see on screen these really great theater actors. And I don't care what anybody says, theater prepares you for like pretty much anything. I mean, of course, acting in front of the camera is like entirely different, but um, I just think there's a whole new dimension to theater actors, especially if you think about things like voice and movement and, well, those are the two biggies probably. And of course, characterization is just like people in theater just know how to do that, you know, really, really well. So, and they know how to use their face really well. And so, if you have a really good director who knows how to direct for that actor, whatever their style is, I think it's going to come across a lot better. And a lot of the people that you see in even today, like when people think of like Charles Dance from Game of Thrones, I mean that guy's a theater actor. Patrick Stewart, theater actors. Ian McKellen, theater actors. Judi Dench, theater actors. They're all theater actors. You know, so I mean that's why they're so great. That's why I love that. Now, film is different too because you can have people who aren't trained in the theater be also really great on film. So it is kind of I think it's like theater is the classic as film is to jazz. Like jazz being kind of improvisatory, if you will. The camera can take something that's classic and like move with it and improv it and make it not necessarily better. Sometimes it makes it better. Sometimes it doesn't. We've all heard of those moments when, you know, uh, somebody says, oh, I saw the theater production of this particular movie and it's so much better than the movie. And then there's the other side, people are like, go see the movie. It's amazing. It's way better than, there's things that you can't do on stage that you can do on film and vice versa, So, so yeah, that's a little bit about my collegiate background, and I'll come back to that later. And then after I got out of school, kind of in between doing other things, I did spend a significant amount of time in retail. So I was both a manager and a salesperson in music retail and also movies. So, and this was in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I spent a lot of time like around products like that. So, um, so that's kind of where my background is. And I'm probably leaving out some stuff. But anyway, so I think what I'll get to with this particular video is just maybe talking about, also I'll be talking about music as well. And that'll come up as well. And that'll be like pop music. I might throw in jazz. I don't know, reggae, opera, who knows? It doesn't really matter. So, yeah. So what I'm going to do is I also found a couple of Screwball Comedy lists on YouTube. Now, let me give you kind of a, not a warning, but just, a note. Some of these lists, because they're YouTube, you got to remember, you may know this already, but if you get a YouTube list of something from some random person, you have to remember sometimes there's like public domain copies that are very old and they've never been remastered, so the quality might be like the actual like production quality, like the audio or video might not be up to snuff, you know what I mean? So luckily the one of Bringing Up Baby is quite good because I've watched it and it's the quality is for YouTube is pretty good. Other times you get lucky and somebody's uploaded a really good quality copy of something. And then there's the other part, which is sometimes these movies aren't that great. Okay, so, but here's the thing. I really enjoy watching even a subpar screwball comedy or classic comedy, or it doesn't have to be screwball. It could just be any kind of comedy. You might hear me talking. One of the first movies I live tweeted on my Twitter account was Noises Off, directed by, I can't believe I forgot his name. Peter Bogdanovich. Peter Bogdanovich, yeah. And who I think recently passed away, but he was I'm sure you know who he is, but he was probably not famous for his comedies, but he did a good job with them because he was such a huge fan of he was a huge fan of Screwball. In fact, I think he did a commentary on, if you get the DVD copy of Bringing Up Baby, he did a really good commentary on that. So yeah, and I think he also wrote some, or was involved in some books where he interviewed people like Howard Hawks, who was the director of Baby, and I think he interviewed Orson Welles, and so he was kind of friends with all of these classic directors. And he himself, I think, was also a theater director as well as a film director. And people know him from like The Last Picture Show and stuff like that. But and he was married to Sybil Shepherd, and so everybody knows that. But I think he had a really good sensibility for understanding the fun of a well choreographed meaning not necessarily dancing, but there is a lot of like choreography in like an ensemble comedy. Even if you're just people moving across, you know, from scene to scene, there's this almost like a really well-oiled machine kind of quality to it, and that's what makes it so fun, you know. And so and it takes a lot of practice too. But I think if you watch a movie like Noises Off, which is from I think 1994, it's got John Ritter, uh, Christopher Reeve, Michael Caine, Carol Burnett, Julie Haggerty, who you might remember from Airplane, and Mary Lou Henner, and I can't remember her name, but she's a British actress. She was on one of the soap operas in the 90s, and I can't remember, like Melrose Place or something like that. But anyway, she's okay in it. And of course, the wonderful, I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. One of the great actors, he was in Trading Places. And so it's a great ensemble cast. And I'm forgetting some of the other people who are also great in it. But it's basically, you know, you're going to be watching a play run 2 or 3 times. And what's cool about it is you get to watch kind of the disintegration of what's happening behind stage, backstage. So you're seeing the play, but you're also seeing the backstage antics of this crazy theater troupe, you know. And really, they're actually reasonable actors, you know. I mean, like the characters they play, they're not, when I say crazy, I mean the antics are crazy. The people aren't crazy. They're just kind of like getting stressed out and, you know, stuff like that. So, like if you want like a more recent version of a screwball comedy, I would say that's a really good one. Where can you get that? Well, this is the problem. This is why I didn't want to like give people something that I can't tell them where it's found. It's probably, I'm sure it's streaming somewhere for pay. I'm sure you get it on YouTube for pay. But if I ever come across a free copy, I'll post that. But yeah, that's a definite one you should watch if you want to get kind of a modern feel for what, because that's from a guy who loved the 1930s. So I'll leave you with those two. What I'll do is I'll put the link to Bringing Up Baby in the comments, because that's a YouTube, and it's a good copy. And I'll put maybe another link to a playlist or two that has some pretty good screwball comedies on it. Some other stuff I might do in future videos is talk about musicals. I might talk about pop music. I don't know. I'm just going to see what strikes my fancy. So thank you guys for listening, and talk to you soon.